The global health crisis has impacted millions of lives and caused unprecedented damage to the economy of many countries, but it has also brought to light a series of social and financial issues that have been previously overlooked. In view of the unsustainability of the current financial model, as well as the growing social upheaval in the face of the enormous inequality gap, which has been further expanded by the crisis, economists, central bankers, politicians, and globalists have been treating the health crisis as a perfect opportunity to start the great financial reset. Evidently, the reset will not come without huge consequences for the entire world population, including increased surveillance and dominance over our lives, greater dependence on governments, and, according to some analysts, this elite's master plan is just a delusional idea that will prompt people to grant some of their freedoms in exchange for a greener economic plan that will never be effectively put into practice. Meanwhile, the wealthy will find the perfect cue to pursue their infinite money fantasy by making modern monetary theory policies permanent. In a recent article on the Great Recession blog, financial and economic writer David Haggith revealed that several CEOs, political figures, and powerful individuals inside the financial markets have already quietly started making this transition. That's why, in today's video, we're going to expose how these changes will affect all of our lives and discuss how we are already inevitably diving into the establishment's plan of widespread monitoring, endless money printing, and the creation of digital identities. So stay with us, and don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, share it with friends, and subscribe to our channel to keep updated with the next chapters of the economic collapse. Recently, a new hot topic amongst world leaders and central bankers is how the sanitary outbreak has highlighted the need for a major change in the global financial and economic system. Central bank digital currencies are being developed by numerous countries as a consequence of the effects of inflation and the deterioration of the purchasing power of their fiat currencies. But of course, politicians and policymakers are justifying their creation as the next obvious move to make in a society where technology is taking over. However, the reality is that only by issuing digital money the Great Reset will be effectively possible. Digital currencies are the key to increasing government surveillance in our transactions. As we discussed in previous videos, measures such as universal basic income will arise as a solution for the financial problems caused by widespread lockdowns and the economic recession that were enabled by the government. By making extraordinary policies permanent, such as the limitless issuance of printed money, world governments are essentially making us more reliant on their financial support while they put the economy and financial markets in a huge bubble. Or, as Haggith expressed, the world is set universally on a course of creating an everything bubble. When that explodes or implodes, it'll be a global problem worse than the Great Recession, which will beg for a global answer. In other words, leaders are setting the stage for a financial catastrophe that'll give us no choice but to accept their help. In the United States, the Federal Reserve has already announced plans to launch a digital currency so that they could deposit UBI in digital wallets for all Americans. It sounds good in theory, but how would you feel knowing that cash will essentially have no more value and that federal agencies can track, block, and tax all of your virtual money transactions? Worse than that, how can you even say no to that or even find an alternative? considering the establishment has been imposing the automation of the labor market, which means that millions of jobs will never come back, and it will become increasingly difficult for individuals to get reinserted into the job market and ensure real financial independence from the state. That's why it's called the Great Reset. It is the ultimate plan, and the health crisis has provided the perfect link to connect all crises into one. If you're a subscriber to our channel, it's no news to you that the health crisis being used as a scapegoat to fuel the stock and the housing market bubbles is also being utilized as reasoning for imploding several sectors of the economy while setting a new standard of what is normal. But to give further proof that the reset has already started and that all current crises are interconnected, we're going to analyze recent statements of some of the key players of the world's financial and economic scenario. According to the Chief Executive Officer of Citigroup Inc., Mike Corbat, from putting letters of credit on blockchains, digitally onboarding clients, and conducting virtual roadshows for IPOs, bankers are ripping up some of the last paper trails we have left. Consumers who might have not done a lot digitally until now are engaging remotely. Many of those core activities will never go analog again. All that puts even more responsibility on financial institutions to help close the digital divide. Now that's the CEO of a major bank where ordinary people used to go to work on a day-to-day basis, stressing that banking will never be the same again. Considering banking activity and operations are becoming progressively digital, and the virtual workspace is not only more cost-effective as, at this point, it is an irreversible trend, we can expect millions of banking jobs to be slashed worldwide. Moreover, other banking titans such as James Gorman foresee more and more of the financial industry going digital. In addition to job losses, another result of the permanent shift to virtual platforms is that big firms might not need so much office space. Considering that pretty much everything that's done in Wall Street offices is already digital, this transition is expected to happen smoothly. But on the other hand, this will certainly accelerate New York City's uptown collapse. The Big Apple has been on the path of continued pain as the collapse of commercial real estate has hit the hardest in Manhattan. Prolonged rounds of lockdowns and the loss of uptown workers resulted in the closure of thousands of Manhattan stores. The upsurge in social disorder witnessed during multiple civil demonstrations of rage and discontentment across the city's streets is also making the area less desirable for people to live in. Additionally, being the hotspot of repeated waves of virus outbreaks, people have been driving away from the city in fear. Many major cities will likely face similar struggles. Changes in work arrangements are also going to have a long-term impact on the travel industry, compromising the economic recovery of locations whose revenue was mostly based on tourism. Susan Line, managing partner at BBG Ventures, said, "I can't imagine companies are going to go back to spending as much on business travel. Everyone has been forced to figure out how to do business across the country using Zoom or whatever video products." Likewise, the CEO of Booking Holdings Inc., Glenn Fogel, has also outlined another worrying change in travel standards that may become permanent. He says, "You're going to see fever checks in all airports. They're going to try to catch anyone who's coming through who may be infected. Certain jurisdictions are going to ask you to download an app to track where you are." According to several analysts, economists, and business leaders, very soon people will have to prove that they don't have the virus and will be submitted to testing or will have to grant proof of vaccination as a condition for flying on some airlines. Some travel companies are already doing this, and others, including Air Canada, have already announced such plans. Depending on how the vaccination rolls out, by the end of this year, international travel could potentially only be allowed in view of travelers' medical records. These measures would add more pressure on the recovery of one of the most disrupted industries by the crisis. Meanwhile, with traveling stalling and remote working expanding, we're about to experience an irreversible transformation in the job market. James Gorman, CEO of Morgan Stanley, says, "Clearly, we've figured out how to operate with much less real estate. Do I think everyone is going to be working from home? No. But can I see a future where part of every week, certainly part of every month, a lot of our employees will be at home? Absolutely. People have been functioning extremely well. We will have less footprint." And that's James Gorman, CEO of Morgan Stanley, speaking. Conversely, as more and more employees will be working from home, employees won't have to hire local workers. Instead, they'll be able to employ highly qualified workers from places where wages are considerably lower, such as China, such as India. As Joe Lonsdale, partner at 8VC and co-founder of Palantir, has maintained in an interview, saying, "Does this change how we hire around the world? Unfortunately, it probably pushes outsourcing a lot more for certain types of jobs in the United States, because you can hire someone just as well who doesn't have to necessarily live in your town. It could be another pressure on the middle classes." The U.S. middle class has already undergone unparalleled financial setbacks during the current recession, with millions of previously well-off families falling right into poverty in a time span of months. The measures put in place to avoid the total meltdown of the country and to allegedly aid the American citizens have immersed this group in more debt, and amid a tragic outlook for the economy and the job market, debt canceling will sound like a practical option. James Galbraith, professor of government at the University of Texas, says, "There will be a vast tangle of unpaid debts that cannot be cleared, and what is different from 2008 and 2009, the model of foreclosures, evictions, and repossessions, to deal with them is going to be absolutely unacceptable. People sheltering at home without income are in no way responsible for their circumstances and will refuse to accept the terms of those contracts. So, the contracts will have to be suspended, and the debts will have to be cleared away, or there will be confrontation on a vast scale. The right model is that of the treatment of inter-allied war debts after World War II. They were cancelled because dealing with the common enemy was a common effort. So the whole financial system will have to be reset. This is not an ideological point, but a practical necessity for re-establishing a functioning economic system." A quote from James Galbraith, professor of government, University of Texas. However, what seems to be a debt reset to repair some of the damage caused by reckless government policies, according to Ron Paul, is actually a plan to expand government power and suppress liberty through enhanced surveillance state via real-time tracking worldwide. In a recent interview, the former congressman has denounced the World Economic Forum's Great Reset agenda, affirming that in addition to digital wallets, immunity passports, which are being developed by governments, airlines, and several entertainment venues, will be used as tools for monitoring every aspect of society. The WEF doesn't appear to be hiding its intentions, as its leader, Klaus Schwab, has disclosed in an interview that the post-COVID fourth industrial revolution will lead to a fusion of our physical, our digital, and our biological identities. This digital identity determines what products, services, and information we can access, or conversely, what is closed off to us. Initially, The introduction of such measures will be conceived as a response to the health crisis, but the creation of a digital identity that includes contact tracing and immunity passports are means to an end. They can sell us the idea of the formation of a new system that would improve the livelihoods of millions, but on the flip side of the coin, they will also guarantee access to private information that could be used by authoritarian governments to profile and police citizen behavior. And one thing we clearly learned about fascism from past crises is that it's better not to ever count on authorities not to abuse their power, because they will if they can. So beware of the Great Reset, because just as all the other elites' plots, it's not as good as it sounds. And this time, it's not only our finances, but our freedoms that are on the line.